Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet Earth. Tomorrow is a celebration. It's always on September 29th after the fall equinox. And I had never heard of this celebration before my daughter went to Waldorf school. But it's a beautiful, beautiful story. And we know how much stories live in our psyche. And like a good movie, a book, a theater, they are coloring different aspects of our lives. And so for many, many years, I've been celebrating a festival called Michaelmas, or the Feast of Saint Michael, and some people call it Saint George and the Dragon in the UK. There are different stories all around the world, but basically the thing that's most important is the work with courage and truth. Fall, as we know, is a time when autumn leaves are blowing around and stirring up things. We know that winter, the leaves begin to fall, they turn color, the animals begin to hibernate, many of them, and we're going into the season of quiet, or the death of the summer, the death of all the vibrancy of green, at least on the East Coast and in Europe. We sometimes are covered with white snow and cold, and things go underground, and that's where all the life is what's underground. It's no longer what's above ground, but what's underground. And it's a time and a season where, as I said, things get stirred up. Well, it seems to me things have been stirred up for quite some time now. But to add this new season into that, we really do need to, in the words of Michaelmas, have courage, stand up for truth. Use the sword of Michael to cut through the lies, to use our inner sword to cut through the lies, to cut through the mistruths, the distortions, the distortion that there is no white privilege. That's a very hard cutting through for some of us. The standing up for the truth that millions and millions of people live in circumstances that we could not fathom. Maybe some of you, I certainly have seen many places in the world where it's beyond what anyone. Well, only the strong can survive. Only the strong can survive. And so this is a time that's marked in ancient festivals of old, of standing up again to truth, standing up with courage, taking courage to fight the dragon that lives inside of us. That's our dragon. How do we tame that dragon? How do we stand up to it? How do we pierce the sword of the illusions we let ourselves get away with, of the pain, of the fear that we live with every day? Let's pause here for a moment and just acknowledge some of that for ourselves. So pausing, my husband calls it the radical pause. Pausing is new to many people and difficult to practice, but what a gift it brings. Especially for those of us who have practiced for many, many years now, and we still have fears and anxiety, missteps, missayings, misdoings, humanness that's still not brought up into a morality that we would like to have. When we have these practices and we pause, there is this tendency then to go inward, to reflect, to wonder, not to be that certain. Pausing is an opening. It's potential. It's a breath of fresh air. Yesterday, I got triggered by some old, I don't even know where it first began or why, but this thing came up and it's like, oh, I'm really triggered about this. Well, why is that? Well, the why wasn't such a helpful question, at least not for me in that moment. But just to keep saying what I did, what I found myself doing was whenever something arose that started to grip, oh, I'm being triggered. Oh, I'm being triggered again. Oh, there's that thing. Pausing is the gateway to reflection, to acknowledgement. Those first steps of courage. It even takes a little courage to pause. It's not a societal value. People think you've forgotten what you were going to say because we're always saying, doing, responding to outer circumstances. But today, looking toward Michaelmas tomorrow, we pause, we reflect. Even the Jewish holy days recently, pausing, reflecting, atoning. There's so many ways. We were given all kinds of festivals to every tribe, every religion, every race, every creed to help us to pause, to reflect. So the times, they are a-changing. There will be trials, more trials. And how do we take courage without tensing up and, holding ourselves really tight to fight something? Well, there is another way. Sometimes that way works. Sometimes when it's really cold, our shoulders come up, and biologically that's trying to warm the jugular vein and the arteries to keep our blood warm. But it doesn't seem to work It doesn't work in the long run. We remain cold and all of us constricts and gets tight. And so another way that I've been reminded of lately coming toward Michaelmas is leaning into it a little bit. Okay, it's cold. Let me put on a few more hats, a few more scarves, a few more coats, a few more socks. Oh, and look at that beautiful bird that I might not have seen had I not gone outside. Oh, smell the air. It's so clear, crystal. Leaning in to that helps us to maybe look at other situations where we can lean in, buddy up to, get a little bit closer. Pausing again. What does that mean for us? Leaning in. What does that look like for us? Well, for me, we have an election coming up in the United States, and it's a very difficult time for those of us that would like to see dignity, virtue, love, kindness, honesty return to our shores. And we're fighting a great distortion. And so I have noticed that I have been becoming a little more frightened of this. And what comes as a leaning in, I made handmade signs about love, about dignity, about justice and kindness. And I put them on my lawn, my front lawn here. And it's wonderful to watch people stop. And if I'm getting my mail, we have a little discussion about these good values. And I see myself, if I'm fearful again, well, maybe I'll be one of those that goes to the polls and stands outside and encourages positivity in people on both sides, showing up for love, showing up for kindness, showing up for aliveness, for courage to be alive in the way we know we can be. Isn't it crazy, the kind of sense of death all around us, far and wide, close and near? How do we keep our life forces? I'll take a pause again. There's a line from there are many songs, of course, in the festival. There's always lots of singing. And there's one of my favorites is there's a line that the lower voices sing, and it's like a drone or a chant. And it's basically something like this: when I conquer within me fear and doubt, Michael casts the dragon forth. When I conquer within me fear and doubt, I'm able to cast my dragons out. Now, that's a very big ideal, casting them out and conquering. I think that leaning into, getting familiar with, having a conversation with these dragons is a very good place to start. In fact, there's an alternative song and an alternative light of how St. George fought the dragon in Old English lore, or how a more divine look of Michael, how he casts the dragon out. There's another stories and songs about him taming the dragon through music, through playing a flute and taming the dragon. And so I think a little bit of both has to be our way. When we pause, when we reflect, the mere fact of taking a pause is a courageous stand, stopping us, getting off the train of thought, stopping that train of thought, pausing. And then to be able to truly see, to look in the eye, the wrongdoing I have committed, the thoughts I've held of others. Oh, so many things. We humans, so many things. Seeing them, acknowledging them, and wondering, where does this come from? Why do I keep doing this? How can I maybe befriend, have a conversation with this piece of myself, usually my past, something old. Maybe it came from our ancestors. Maybe I can get some help from nature, from walking in the beautiful, beautiful air of this peninsula I live on. Maybe I can remember that there's more than me holding this. So many of us in the world working, practicing, finding our way to the heart and to heart thinking. So happy Michaelmas. Find your way, taming, standing up to, looking at, during this great time of trial. Finding that aliveness, the nutrients we need, the nourishment, the strengthening of the immune during this time to help others and to uncover our truth. So I guess our practice is really this pausing, the reflecting, and the being with, the having the tough conversations and the kind and sweet conversations with that part of us that still clings to these old thoughts. My heart goes out to you on this day for all the work I know we'll be doing together. Have a wonderful week.